What should your testimony cover when you're speaking about the way of beauty? Especially, I'm thinking of here in groups when you're bearing witness, shall we say, excuse me, to the process. And I brought this in at this stage because I've just given you my testimony in order to sell it, and you may or may not think I did a good job, but at least I can explain the approach that I was using. And this has been, for those who do it well, shall we say, the most effective way of drawing people in and encouraging them to do the process too. And so, if that's your goal, and that's what my goal is, then I try and follow these principles. So it's rough guidance. Always, in the end, you're telling your own story. And so that is always going to have an impact, and people do this in individual ways. But when we give our personal testimony, the general guidance is very simple. We're trying to communicate the benefits of what we've been doing so that others can see what's possible for them. If we thought that it was a waste of time, I hope you wouldn't go to a group to tell everyone it was a waste of time. I hope you just stop going or stop doing the process or move on to something else and say it's not for me. But if we're doing it and we're participating in it, then we must feel there's some good in doing that. We've done this for a reason, so we're trying to communicate what that is. And this can be for experienced people who've had many years in it, or even if you're very new, just say, this is my impression so far, this is why I'm coming, this is why I chose to come today. So we typically start, if we have, depending on how long we have a course, we start with what it used to be like. Before I came, I was like this. What led you to the Way of Beauty process in the first place? And then finally, we say what it's like now. We contrast this with the general effect. And we speak generally. We're trying to give a general impression. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So I spoke, for example, when saying what it used to be like and what led me to the Way of Beauty. I spoke in the last video about how lonely and miserable I was. You may not have such depths in your life. It may be that you're just looking for a new direction. Things are going pretty well, and you'd like them to get even better. So don't exaggerate or don't dramatize unnecessarily. Just tell the truth. The chances are there's somebody just like you who needs to hear that story. And for them, my story would be overly dramatic, and they'd wonder whether it was appropriate for them, whether they have to have something more going on. So just share your experience in a way that's detached. It usually isn't helpful to relive the emotion of any particular time dramatically. We're breaking down in tears, for example. It draws others draws the attention to ourselves rather than to the message, and people feel embarrassed really to listen to it on the whole. Although they'll rarely tell you that, everyone will be sympathetic. But you see the point I'm making. So just tell honestly what your reasons are for coming in a general way, in a detached manner. And then say how you heard about this and what made it actually work for you and what made you think that it might work for you. So I talked about how I heard about David through friends, for example, or I read about this online, you might say, just what it is, just how you found out about it, and then what its impact has been, the difference it's made. So the goal here is to show the clear contrast between what life was like before and what it's like now. When I say clear, I don't mean there's a huge difference. You might be very new to this, but even if it's just the hope that something might be different, communicate that. We're doing it in a positive light. What has made you make the decision to stay working on this and want to talk about it today? There must be something good there, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. in my case, for example, I talk about how I was directionless, and through the process, I ultimately got direction and meaning in life. I found a faith in God, and I was able to derive happiness from my relationship with God, regardless of external circumstances. So you heard me talk about that, but that's the sort of general picture that I'm seeking to communicate when I speak. A couple of really important things to keep in mind as we speak, even though we're in a group session. This is not group therapy. So it's not necessary, and I have to say, usually not very helpful, to describe our problems in detail or to bare our souls. This is what happens in group therapy. And I believe, I haven't done a lot of group therapy, but what I understand, that's the point of group therapy. This is something very different. So we don't need to do that. And similarly, although the process in itself will ultimately will involve a review of conscience and confession of sins, confession of faults, we don't reveal those in detail in the group. This forum is not the confessional. We do that with trusted individuals and very carefully, people who we know will effectively respect our integrity and will not talk about what they hear. You can allude to things you've looked at, but on the whole, it's wiser to remember that however much we ask for confidentiality, and it's something we should always give others, it's always possible someone might repeat what they hear. We don't really know a lot of necessarily everybody in the meeting very well. So as a recommendation, I would say don't share details that could compromise you later if they were repeated. We're aiming to give, as I say, a general picture of what's happening and how the process is helping us. And we're using a few stories and examples to actually illustrate the points we're making. People understand the general through particulars. So we need to give some particulars and some detail, but we give things that that aren't too personal and embarrass others, or might embarrass us later. Another principle that was passed on to me is to avoid lecturing or telling people what to do if I can help it. So very difficult. Here I am lecturing or telling you, but what I'm trying to do here is communicate it in the manner, this is what I did, this is what I was told to do, this is what worked for me. And the more we can remember that, and inevitably we'll stray away from it, actually the better it is. People on the whole don't like being lectured and told what to do in these sort of matters. And some will dig their heels in and resist. So unless somebody specifically asks you the question, generally this would be in private conversation, just share your own experience. So don't say you should do this and this will happen. That could sound as though we're making promises that we can't guarantee. I just do my best to stick to my own experience. I say what happened to me, and at the very end, I might add something like, I believe if people do what I did, then it might open the door to similar changes for them. As I say, we will forget, even in the course of this talk, I've probably forgotten, but that's what the principle we're trying to strive for. It just makes it more palatable for people to listen and decide whether they want to follow. With telling a story of the improvement of our lives in the hope that others will think, that sounds good for me too. When we're discussing a particular topic, if there's a topic suggested, or a step or principle in the meeting, again, it helps to give actually a bit of detail about what we actually did, as well as the impact it had. How did you actually approach this personally? So I always try and do that, and because there's a number of reasons for this. if we provide complete instructions, it's unlikely we're going to be able to give a full sort of account of actually how to do it in the meeting. We normally have to go into more detail, but even a quick description that includes particular details will be helpful, I have found. So, for example, if I describe how I write down the resentments, if we're talking that, people may not remember every word and go away and do exactly the same immediately. But what they will do is they'll get a sense, a picture of what they're going to be doing, or what they'll compare what they're doing with what they hear. And if they're not getting the same good results, it might prompt them to come and ask me what I've done. That's happened to me in the past, or to get a mentor who could explain this to them because they realize they can't work it out by themselves, and you might encourage them to start the process. But at no point have we told them in the ideal what to do. We just said, this is what I did, here's some detail, and they can decide that. And they might say, I'm not doing that, and things aren't going so well, maybe I need some additional instruction here. So that little bit of practical color, if I can call it that, through the detail, gives people an indication that what the process feels is like, and encourage them to start conversations and find out more. Finally, don't worry about what you say. We're not going to get graded for a speech. We're not trying to pass a test. We're simply giving our experience in our own words as best we can, just as best we can. And as my mentor David said to me, no one can argue with that, because I am the world's #1 expert on my life. Nobody knows it better than me. And the more I stick to that, the greater authority I have. And also the less likely I am to sort of wind up being told I've made unkeepable promises. It's a guarantee of truth that this is what I did, this is what happened. And as I say, I might add, maybe this will work for you. So that's it. Good luck.